Fumi was a pathetic, miserable loser, ugly, disgusting, and hopelessly addicted to video games. To make matters worse, he had gambled away his family's entire life savings. One day, while rotting away in the library reading fanfics, a strange book suddenly began to glow in his hands. Before he knew it, he was sucked into another world, landing in the middle of a summoning ritual. Standing beside him were three other sorry excuses for human beings: Rem, the so-called sword hero; Motoyasu, the clueless spear hero; and Itsuki, the completely useless bow hero. The mages who summoned them dragged the group to the king, who explained that they were brought here to stop the waves, massive swarms of monsters bent on destroying the world. To help the heroes, the king assembled the strongest warriors in the kingdom to join their parties, except nobody wanted anything to do with Fumi. Armed with nothing but a shield, he realized he'd be Monster Chow in no time. Just when things looked hopeless, the kingdom's hottest babe, Mine, volunteered to join his party. Because Fumi was stuck with only one teammate, the king compensated him with more money than the other heroes. And with that, their twisted adventure officially began. After wiping out every slime in the field, Fumi absorbed their leftover goo, powering up his shield. Later, Mine dragged him to the blacksmith, where he tried picking up a sword, only for his holy weapon to block him from even holding it. Mine, being the genius she was, told him to just buy some cheap armor since his shield would cover him anyway, while she splurged on the most expensive armor in the shop. She even promised to pay him back however he wanted, but all she really did was drain his wallet until he was flat broke. Fumi took her to the fanciest restaurant in town. Over dinner, Mine begged him to share a glass of PG-rated grape juice and coyly asked to spend the night with him. But, of course, Fumi's dumb ass fumbled the bag, apologizing because his room only had a single bed. He ditched her and went to sleep, hiding the 200 silver coins he had left beneath his shield before dozing off, actually excited for his new life in another world. When he woke up the next morning, though, reality slapped him in the face. All of his gear was gone. As Fumi tried to wake Mine up the next morning, a squad of guards stormed in, spears at his throat, and dragged him straight to the king. Right there in front of everyone, Mine suddenly cowered behind the spear hero, crying that Fumi had pinned her down and tried to force himself on her before she barely escaped into Motoyasu's room. Fumi desperately denied it, but then noticed something worse. Motoyasu was standing there wearing his chainmail armor. When he called him out, the spear clown just laughed and said Mine had gifted him the armor last night, before demanding that Fumi be executed on the spot. In that moment, Fumi's whole world snapped. He looked at Mine and realized she had been faking everything from the start, draining his wallet, mocking him, and now framing him just to ruin his life. The smirk on her face made it crystal clear. She had never seen him as anything but a tool. Enraged, Fumi shouted for them to just send him back home. But the king coldly explained that summoning new heroes was only possible once all four current ones were dead. Meaning if he wanted freedom, he had no choice but to fight against the coming waves. Everyone turned away in disgust at the idea of working with him. But Fumi, furious and broken, swore he'd handle it all himself. Throwing the guards off, he declared he didn't need anyone's help and that he'd defeat every last wave on his own. Before leaving, Fumi hurled the rest of his coins at Mine's gold-digging ass. When Motoyasu tried to stop him, Fumi snapped back that he was too weak to be worth his time and walked away, unaware that a shadowy spy was already watching him. With that, everything was gone: his money, his respect, and whatever scraps of trust he had left. As he wandered through town, the citizens avoided him like the plague, and even the blacksmith nearly knocked him out for hurting Mine. But after seeing the dead glare in Fumi's eyes, the man backed down and instead tossed him a robe, telling him to pay later. Out in the fields, Fumi had no choice but to vent his rage on the weakest prey possible: slimes. He smashed them one by one with his bare fists, eventually stacking enough slime skins to reach level 2. Staring at the slimy mess, he couldn't help but wish he still had his phone to play the greatest RPG ever made. After that little daydream, Fumi dragged himself back into town to sell his pile of slime skins. The merchant tried to scam him, offering just a single copper coin for 20 skins. But Fumi wasn't that gullible anymore. He knew the trader was flipping them for way more to other adventurers. So he grabbed the man by the face and promised to remodel it if he didn't pay the fair market price. So the merchant agreed to pay him fairly. For countless nights, he began sleeping in the middle of the field and eventually found expensive herbs. And after absorbing them, he unlocked a new leaf shield to use. And with his new shield, he was able to enhance the quality of the herbs. So when he met a pharmacist at night, he was able to sell them for a high price. With everything he had, he would buy the cheapest food he could afford. But one day, 3 worthless morons ambushed him in the alley, commanding him to give them his money. However, Now Fumi turned around and shoved a slime onto one of them while blocking the knife of the other bandit with his shield. All three of them began running away. But even after they went away, now Fumi realized he was powerless as he can't ever get stronger without killing monsters, and he can't ever kill monsters with just his shield. Seeing his frustration, Dr. Eggman's scamming cousin told Now Fumi that he had a very interesting proposal for him and told Now Fumi to follow him only if he was interested. As they walked back to his hideout, the merchant told him that he was here to offer him some slaves, telling him that slaves would never lie or betray their masters. Because of the curse placed on them, they will always obey their owner's commands. And while he looked through all of them, he saw a little demi-human girl who looked sick inside. The worthless slave trader told him that she was the cheapest slave he had, as she was both physically and mentally ill because her previous owner loved torture because she would likely die soon. The slave trader was willing to sell her for 30 silver coins. So now Fumi decided she was going to be the one he buys. Inside the slave merchant's room, he drew a sigil across her chest, and now Fumi saw her status appearing as part of his party before leaving. Now Fumi asked for her name, screaming at her to stop her disgusting mouth from coughing. So she told him that her name was Rafalia, and he forcefully grabbed her away. As he walked away, the trader was shocked that now Fumi really chose her, as if it was destined by fate to happen once again. Inside the blacksmith's shop, now Fumi gave him 6 silvers for a weapon that she could use and told her to draw her knife at the slime hiding under him. But when she was too scared to react, he began activating her curse to force her into submission. So she rushed forward to stab the slime, but was too weak to deal any damage. Still, now Fumi screamed at her to try harder, and when she rushed forward this time, she blew the slime up, gaining XP. As she sat on the floor, he told her that she will become his sword as he protected her and left the blacksmith to go to a food place. When he went inside, he asked for the cheapest food he had and asked for Rafalia to get the same food the kid behind her is eating. When she wondered why he would get something for her, he told her that it looked like she wanted it. And when she got the food, her eyes lit up, wondering if she could really eat something so nice. Tears began flowing through her eyes as she ate. But now Fumi realized that he really still can't taste anything. Later that day, they began farming the slimes once again, and once they were done, now Fumi's shield began leveling up. At the same time, Rafalia wondered who he was, so he told her that he was the shield hero. After hearing those words, she remembered her family asking her who her favorite hero was, and when she said it was the shield hero, they were glad as he was the only one who ever treated demi-humans kindly. When she asked for his name, he told her that it was now Fumi and handed her medicine to cure her sickness away, but it was more disgusting than his face. As he kept watching throughout the night, Rafalia dreamed about the day her parents tried protecting her from a 3-headed dog and threw her into the ocean as they were devoured. Waking up screaming for her parents, now Fumi tried holding her closely to calm her down. The following morning, the pharmacist told now Fumi that he'd make way more money selling medicine instead of herbs. So now Fumi asked if he could borrow some of his tools. Outside the shop, Rafalia was watching a bunch of kids playing with a ball, but even though she pretended like she'd never want one, seeing her tail wag made him realize she was lying. So he decided to buy her one of them. Before the night approached, he tried buying a room, but when the merchant was hesitant, he threatened to make his face even uglier than it already was. As days passed, now Fumi kept taking care of Rafalia and giving her medicine along with selling everything else that remained. Slowly, they began diving deeper into the forest. But when a rabbit appeared, now Fumi tried making Rafalia stab the rabbit. However, she didn't want to make the rabbit bleed. And as her curse activated, now Fumi told her that he wouldn't be able to keep taking care of her if she was unable to attack. After all, the waves are going to destroy this world. But when she heard that he was going to defeat the waves, her resolve strengthened and she began charging towards the rabbit, ending it in that instant. She told him that she wouldn't be weak and that she'd do anything to stay by his side. That evening, when they returned to the weapons shop, now Fumi decided to buy her a bigger sword to prepare her for tougher quests. So, the smith showed them a short iron sword, telling them that it was a perfect fit for her. Realizing he was fast returning to being a brokey, now Fumi decided to ask if there was a nearby village they could earn some quick cash. Feeling sorry for his broke, ugly-ass face, the smith directed them to the nearest village. When they arrived in the village, now Fumi decided to sell his rabbit skin to a merchant and asked for directions to the nearest gold mine. The man told them that there was a coal pit nearby and said that he could make some good money from selling the ores inside a barn. Now, Fumi decided to check his stats on the system. Realizing his shield had acquired exclusive effect and skills, he decided to reveal this new ability. At once, his shield transformed into a rope shield. Looking to discover its full abilities, he cast an air strike shield before him and was surprised even at the sight of it. However, when Rafalia appeared before him, he pretended like he was not impressed and suggested that they leave immediately. As they headed down the tunnel, Rafalia wondered just what she could call him. However, now Fumi did not give two about it and told her to call him whatever she wants. When they were deep inside the cave, now Fumi began hammering the crystals. When he was done, he noticed that Rafalia was shivering in fear and watched as a two-headed monster appeared before their eyes. Rafalia realized that this monster looked exactly like the three-headed beast that Isekai'd her parents. And as the memories continued flashing across her mind, she was totally paralyzed in fear. As the beasts hurried to devour her, now Fumi narrowly rescued her and dived into the water. As he tried climbing up the mountain, and now Fumi realized that this was why she cried in her sleep every night. Before long, the beast appeared before them, and now Fumi realized that it was a level 15 monster. He told Rafalia that this was her chance to avenge her parents. After letting out those words, he charged at the monster, and as he blocked one with his shield, the second bit into his shoulder. Realizing he was about to meet his end, he told her to kill the beast immediately, but she was too chicken to even move. He tried commanding her, but even still, she was too afraid to stand. Realizing this was hopeless, he told her to run away before she was devoured and said that she would finally be free once he was dead. However, she remembered how her parents were devoured before her eyes and how now Fumi had saved her and had been a good guy from the very start. Afraid of wandering alone for the rest of her life, she charged forward and stabbed one on the head, but was flung aside. With the beast turning its attention on her, now Fumi cast a shield to protect her, and utilizing the opportunity, she stabbed it deep inside the heart, killing it in that instant. At that moment, Derek breathed, and Rafalia rushed to hold him, happy to see him alive. As she cried in his arms, now Fumi realized that she had chosen to call him by his name. After a few weeks, now Fumi had managed to upgrade his shield and was able to unlock several skills and abilities. With the wave slowly approaching, now Fumi thought it was about time they upgrade their equipment. However, when they arrived at the weapons shop that evening, the smith began to wonder how Rafalia had grown into a hot demi-human within a few weeks. However, now Fumi thought she had always looked like the same short, ugly rat and wondered why their village was filled with lolicons hitting on her. Rafalia began telling the smith that they came to buy armor for now Fumi. After he was injured by the beast, Rafalia had decided to make it her life's mission to protect him at all times. So, the smith told them that he would make a new armor fitting only for now Fumi. That night in a restaurant, now Fumi tried ordering a kid's lunch for Rafalia, but she screamed at him, saying that she was now a grown woman and would only eat what the grown-ups eat. The following day, after wearing his custom-made barbarian armor, now Fumi noticed that all the people were gathered in the street, afraid of the impending arrival of the waves. When he wondered how they would predict the arrival of the waves, the smith told him to visit the city where he would find the dragon hourglass that would teleport them to the scene of the waves when the countdown completes. That evening, now Fumi decided to visit the church, and as he appeared before the hourglass, his shield directed a light towards it, and he realized that the waves would be arriving the following day. At that moment, the other heroes arrived, and Madesu wondered if he was still the same disgusting bummer they all remember. Deciding to ignore him, now Fumi began to leave, but realized that Madoyasu was trying to score with his girl and told Rafalia to be careful around him as he was known all around the city as a disgusting perf. Angered by his words, Fumi confronted him, nearly knocking his teeth out, but decided to remain a non-violent protagonist and began to lead Rafalia away. That night in their room, Rafalia tried asking what happened between him and the other heroes, but now Fumi told her to mind her business since he left the castle without a single soul believing his side of the story. He had decided never to speak of it again. The following day, as all the warriors prepared for the arrival of the waves, Rafalia began telling now Fumi that she was proud to stand by his side as his fight. She told him that she would continue to be his sheath whenever he wishes to rest his long sword and would stay by his side forever. As the remaining sand trickled down in the hourglass, the skies turned red and all the heroes vanished into the forest. Before their eyes, the wave of catastrophe appeared in the sky, and before long, alien monsters began to invade the world. But Rafalia told him that the waves were heading for the village they visited a few weeks ago. Realizing no one else could save them, now Fumi began running towards the village. At the same time, the zombie had already invaded the village. But now Fumi saved a man from meeting his doom, and Rafalia slayed it instantly. With little time to spare, now Fumi told Rafalia to evacuate the villagers and said that he would offer himself up as bait to lure the monsters away. As now Fumi ran towards the villagers, he punched a zombie, but his blow was softer than a 10-year-old's hand. He told them to run away from the village and offered to lead the monsters away. As he saved a villager with his arrow strike shield, he protected another with a shield prison and continued running off. With the monsters chasing him, he slid under a fire and re-emerged with the flame. Eager and desperate, he tried drawing their attention with the fire. As he began running off, he thought he was useless for choosing to fight for this world. When he grew exhausted, he realized that the monsters were just too many, so he thought of leading them to a tower. Using an airstrike shield, he jumped over a zombie and began climbing up the tower. At the top of the tower, he began smacking the bell to draw all of their attention. As they began climbing up, he decided to make good use of this chance and doused the tower with fuel, immediately torching it. As he jumped towards the ground, he tried catching himself on a stick, but crashed right into a house. Before his eyes, he watched the whole tower light up in flames and crash to the ground. At that moment, the villagers returned to support him. One villager told him that they were determined to fight for their village with him, having inspired their own bravery. At that instant, a giant zombie tried ending him, but now Fumi managed to protect him just in time as it turned its attention to the other villagers and tried ending them in that instant. Now, Fumi blocked again, telling the villagers to run away because they were no match for this ugly monster. At that moment, Rafalia appeared, and working together with now Fumi, they managed to take down the monster. Immediately, flares began flying towards the sky, and as it exploded into a light, fires started falling towards the village. Realizing they would be burned by the flames, now Fumi pulled Rafalia and managed to protect both of them with his shield. When the knights arrived, having cast the flames, they were delighted that all the monsters had been obliterated from the village. Immediately, she flew with the leader, but he blocked her sword instantly. She demanded to know why they tried to kill her man and threatened to execute them in return. At that moment, several monsters appeared before the soldiers. As now Fumi saved the leader from a fatal Iki, Rafalia rushed towards the zombie and split his head apart. At now Fuma's command, Rafalia began slashing, cutting, and slaying her way through the zombies before jumping high and slaying another giant. Meanwhile, on the far side of the forest, the other heroes began unleashing their powers on a monster lion. As Motoyasu cast a lightning spear to slay it with all the monsters destroyed, the skies cleared up in an instant. Having been away from the real battle, Medesu thought the waves was a mere cakewalk after all. Inside the village, everyone gathered to thank now Fumi for saving them from total elimination. The villagers tried telling him that he would always be their local hero, but he told them to off. After they left, Rafalia became sad, wishing her parents had been rescued the same way they managed to save this village from annihilation. As she began to cry, now Fumi tried calming her down. That night in the castle, as everyone celebrated their victory, now Fumi thought he was in a hellhole and would surely not have come except for the cash reward the king had promised to give out to the heroes. As Rafalia walked past Motoyasu, he tried to meet her, but Mind stopped him and began whispering some very evil suggestions. Rafalia appeared before now Fumi and tried persuading him to taste the food, but he told her that he would rather drink his own vomit. Before his eyes, he realized he had acquired a new ability, which luckily helped him to teleport with Rafalia to the scene of the wave's invasion. Just then, Rafalia arrived with food, determined not to take no for an answer, and quickly gave him a taste of her cake. Seeing this, Muyasu's jealousy began to grow, so he tossed his glove at now Fumi and challenged him to a duel. With Mind having told him that Rafalia was his slave, he said that he intends to free her from her slave contract, even though he was only hoping to see her switch over to his side. Now Fumi told him that it was perfectly legal to own a slave and began to leave anyway, but a knight stopped him and the king commanded him to accept the challenge. Realizing this turned south, Rafalia tried telling them that she follows now Fume willingly, but a knight muffled her voice and the king said that she has been brainwashed. Realizing he was about to lose his only companion, now Fumi tried reclaiming her, but the knights drew their sword, determined to stop him. As Motoyasu appeared before him, he wondered if he would chicken out of the duel and run off, but now Fumi threatened to destroy him. That night, before the duel, now Fumi tried taking a weapon, but it electrocuted him. and the system warned him not to take any unassigned weapons. As they faced off, Muyasu told him to surrender before he wipes his ugly across the arena floor. However, now Fumi thought action speaks louder than words and decided to activate a new shield, readying himself for the fight. With Motoyasu ready to destroy him, he began charging towards him and rammed his shield continually, but could not even cause a scratch. Now, Fumi told him that he was a sore loser and said that he has no chance of beating him since he can't even pierce his shield. Looking to put in more effort, Motoyasu activated his Chaos Spear and began attacking with relentless onslaught until now Fumi was exposed, allowing him to slit his arm. Determined to make it even, now Fumi began running towards him and successfully punched him in the gut. As Mitayasu realized that a balloon was sucking on his meat, now Fumi revealed the other balloons that were stuck to him. This was his secret weapon, and since he has no offensive attacks, he made good use of them to leverage his weakness. Angered to see him fighting back, Muyasu thought of ending the duel with a powerful jab. But now, Fumi shielded it and knocked him away with his two-headed dog shield. Before he knew it, now Fumi launched an airstrike shield at him and trapped him inside a shield prison. Inside the prison, Midesu realized that a few balloons were trapped with him. As he was unable to escape, all the people began to call now Fumi a useless coward that was too useless to fight. So, he decided to release him and told him to surrender. But Motoyasu told him that he would rather walk to China. Pleased with his response, now Fumi told him that he would destroy his pretty face so he would never get laid for the rest of his life. However, just as he was about to begin the facial reconstruction, a mighty wind blew him away and he realized that Mine had used her magic on him. Angered by her cheating act, he thought of destroying her at that moment, but narrowly dodged Muyasu's spear and successfully blocked all consequent attacks. As Motoyasu drew his lightning spear, he unleashed it straight at now Fumi, successfully penetrating his shield and knocking him out. With now Fumi weakened from the attack, Muyasu declared himself the winner. However, as he began to leave, now Fumi accused him of cheating and said that Mine had attacked him from behind, but everyone was silent in the arena. This made now Fumi think he was hallucinating and soon began to wonder if everyone was dead in the eyes. Before his eyes, the king began to congratulate Motoyasu. And at that moment, now Fumi realized that Mine was actually a princess. All this time, they had tried to destroy him just because the king intended to hook up his daughter with Motoyasu. And even the duel had been a total setup from the very start. He was angry that they had summoned him into their disgusting world, and even still had decided to hate him for doing no wrong at all. This made him angrier, and he thought of destroying every person inside the arena. Just then, a minister said that Rafalia would now be freed from her slave curse. And all the people wondered why now Fume's ugly face was summoned into their world anyway. And before his eyes, they revealed Rafalia's crest and doused it with a potion that caused it to vanish. At that instant, the system revealed that his contract with her had been terminated. As Mine led her away, now Fuma's anger grew tremendously, and he threw his shield far away, but it vanished and reappeared on his arm. As he screamed his anger, saying that this entire world could rot in hell for all he cares. His curse series activated in that instant. At the same time, Rafalia smacked Motoyasu, wondering why he had to stick his ugly nose where it did not belong. She told him that now Fumi was a good master to her, and that he only activated her curse when she was too afraid to fight. Mine thought she was being disrespectful to the love of her life and tried smacking some sense into her. But Itsuki and Rin arrived at that moment as Rin demanded to know why Mine had cheated. Midesu wondered what was going on, but Rin knew better and told her that they were all unwilling to speak up because they were afraid of the king. As Rafalia approached now Fumi, she tried telling him that she was still the same person as before, but he told her to off. As she tried to touch him, he smacked her away, telling her to leave since their contract was now broken. However, she could see deep into his heart and began telling him that she believes him and would remain by his side forever, just as she promised. As he grew angry, thinking he was hated because of his shield, he tried ripping it away, but she stopped him. She told him that the shield was more powerful than he thought, and that it was the only reason they managed to save the village from total obliteration. Now Fumi told her that he was a bad guy and never intended to save the village. But Rafali knew better and decided to hold him. She told him that she could see into his heart, and even though he pretends to be bad, she knew that he was a good guy. She told him that she was his sword and would follow him to the ends of the earth. Hearing her words, now Fumin realized that it was all he had ever wanted to hear. But then he realized that she had told him these exact words right before the waves arrived. She told him that she would stay with him forever, and before his eyes, he finally saw her true grown-up form. However, Monoyasu thought that Rafalia was still under a spell and wondered just how he could break them up. But Itsuki told him that he was either blind or the greatest he had ever seen. It's not facts. These are not facts. The following day, Rafalia gave Naofumi some leftover food from the castle kitchen. As he ate it, he realized that this was the first time he could ever taste food again. When Naofumi was confused as to who she really was, she told him that her clan grow as quickly as they level up and that this had been the reason why they were considered inhuman, because they grow 4 times as fast as a regular kid. That day in the castle, the king announced that Madesu would be paid 4,000 silver for fending off the waves and rewarded Itsuki and Ren with over 3,000 silvers. However, when it was Naofumi's turn, he decided to pay him 500 silver. But before he could even take it, he said that he deserved no reward, having lost his duel to Moriyasu. At this point, Itsuki thought he was starting to overdo it and said that he would have won the duel fairly and squarely without any interference, hoping to clear her name. Mine began saying that Moyasu had won the duel fairly, but Itsuki was having none of her and called her a disgusting cheater. Rin told them that Naofumi had saved the nearby village when the waves invaded and believed that he deserved to be rewarded even for that good deed. Realizing he had no other choice, the king commanded that Naofumi be paid the least possible amount and told him to get his horrendous face out of the castle. As Naofumi grew angry at his words, Rafalia told him that they were better off leaving this hellhole anyway. So Naofumi agreed, realizing it was probably true, and they began to leave together. That day, they decided to return to the slave merchant to activate a new slave contract on Rafalia. When he was done, Naofumi discovered that he had acquired a slave user's shield. As he noticed a few monster eggs, the merchant offered to sell one, telling him that it would make some good meat in the future. Thinking it might come in handy, Naofumi decided to buy one. When they arrived in a medicine store, the owner gave Naofumi a book of herb recipes, calling it a gift for saving the nearby village. Afterwards, they visited a magic shop and the old lady gave them a grimoire, saying that it was a gift for rescuing her grandchild at the village. She told him that if he successfully studied the book, he would learn as many spells as he desires that would be useful in battle. That evening, Naofumi realized that he really needs a Google translator. Rafalia suggested that they learn the language together, and since there was still a month before another wave's invasion, Naofumi agreed. The following morning in the village, Naofumi and Rafalia watched as the dragon egg hatched. Immediately, the bird flew on top of Naofumi, taking him for her parent. And as the days passed, he took on that role like a champ and basically watched the bird increase in size within a few days. By the end of the week, the bird had doubled in size, and Naofumi thought his growth boost skill probably helped. So he decided to name her foe. At that moment, they discovered that another hero had appeared in the village. Inside the square, Mine began telling the villagers that the king had declared Moto Yasu the new lord of the village and said that in their efforts to rebuild the place, they would begin taxing everyone for their entry and exit into the village. The villagers thought this was the worst possible announcement they could hope for. And a man said that they could barely have 2 meals a day. However, Naofumi went on to ask Mine, "Are you delusional? Do you suffer from a mental illness?" He said that the taxes were ridiculous and that there was no possible way the villagers could afford it. As the villagers began to show their support, Mine commanded her soldiers to draw their spears. Before they could attack, a mysterious group appeared before her and handed her a scroll. Angered by the words inside, she decided to challenge Naofumi to a race, saying that the winner would take charge of the village. Afraid of losing their village, the villagers begged Naofumi to accept the challenge. But he thought it was another trap for Mine. As he prepared for the race, Muyasu started bragging about his dragon, calling it the monster version of Yusuzen Bolt. But Foe grew angry and kicked him away. As he landed on a hay stack, he realized that she narrowly missed his plot-developing tool, and Mine was afraid that his plot-making days might be over forever. As the race began, both heroes took off immediately, and Foe gave Moto Yasu some distance, blowing dust into his face. However, Mine Soldier cast a spell and created a hole in the ground. As Naofumi was too late to notice, the bird slipped, allowing Motoyasu to take the lead. However, this only made Foe more determined, and she soon regained the lead. Even so, Mine would not accept defeat. So, her soldier cast a new spell to slow her down, allowing Mayasu to take the lead once more. But Foe was bent on winning and breezed past his dragon, even blowing dust on the princess. Desperate for victory, the soldier cast another spell to increase Monoyasu's speed. But Foe was no quitter. As Madayasu moved into his way, Naofumi discovered the holes before him. So using his error strike shield, they jumped over the hole and continued charging towards the finish lane. Rafalia and the villagers tried showing support, and even mine was afraid that this race might go south. As the blood rushed from the adrenaline, Foe managed to win the race. With the villagers happy about the victory, Foe suddenly doubled in size, leaving even now Fumi in shock. At the sight of this, Mine thought she could use it to her advantage and began to accuse now Fumi of cheating, but he called her the cheater. When she tried to deny it, the mysterious group appeared again, and the leader said that they had sensed a strange magic around the racehorse. Having no other lies to tell, Mine decided to accept defeat, saying that they would be returning to the castle immediately. Hoping to regain some self-esteem, Moasu told Now Fumi that he allowed him to win on purpose. But Now Fumi called him a useless and told him to give his life a purpose. That evening, the village chief told him that they had started saving up to reward him. But Now Fumi told him that he didn't want their money because they needed everything they could save up in rebuilding their village. As he began to wonder what else he could demand for Fode carriage, choosing it as their prize. So that evening they began riding away on the carriage. When Rafalia became sick from all the motioning, she hurried out to vomit. That night, Now Fumi decided to lay her by the fire, hoping that she would feel better in the morning. As he looked at the traveling pass the village chief had given him, he remembered that he told him they would be allowed to travel across the country without paying a dime. So, he began to wonder if they could begin a part-time traveling business. Just then, Foe decided to cuddle up with him. But when he woke up the following morning, he found a little girl by his side. As he backed away immediately, he wondered who she was, but she told him that she was hungry. That morning, when they arrived at the weapons shop, the smith wondered just how many wives Now Fumi intends to have in his harem. When Foy sized the food, she told them that she was hungry. So, the smith asked her to take a bite. At that instant, Foe transformed into the bird and swallowed everything in one gulp. After her meal, Rafalia began telling the smith that the slave merchant had told them about Foe's clan and had said that a few of the birds often hatched as the king or queen of their flock, and that they often have the ability to take on a humanoid form. On top of that, they needed a special crest before they could be tamed. But when they tried to give Foe the crest in hopes of forming a new contract with Now Fumi, she had badly resisted before eventually agreeing. When the smith demanded to know what they really wanted from him, he asked the smith for a special kind of dress that would be a perfect fit for transforming species. But he told them to visit a dressmaker because he was most definitely not one. When they arrived at the dress shop, Now Fumi told the dressmaker that they wished to make Foe a dress that would not rip apart whenever she transforms. The dressmaker told them that they would need magic threads to sew transforming clothes for her, and said that the cloth would be made out of Foe's own mama because it was the only way to create a solid connection with the material. However, since they had no magic threads, they decided to visit the magic shop. She told them that the stones were rare to come by, but promised to find them within a few days. That day, as they began traveling around the village, hoping to earn some quick cash from running errands, they came across a villager, and Rafalia thought it might be their lucky day after all. The man told her that he was heading for the village so he could help his mother with a special medication. Realizing his prayers just got answered, Now Fumi offered to give him a ride for 1 silver. However, the man told them that he was worse than a brokey, so Now Fumi told him that he could repay him with some food instead. Hoping to arrive faster, they decided to ditch the carriage, and Foe took off at once. As they began approaching the entry, the guard asked for their fee, but Now Fumi threw his pass at him and called himself a VIP. After arriving inside the village, Now Fumi offered to give the sick lady her potion and told the man to go count the stars or something. When the man was gone, he increased the power of the potion and gave her the drink. At that instant, her spirit revived and she got up like she was never sick. So the man gave him food that was worth about the same amount as agreed. As Now Fumi rode away, he thought he might become a millionaire soon, realizing he could begin charging broke travelers for their food and eventually sell them for cash. So as the days passed, he continued with this process and tried to study the grimoire every night. A few days later, as he began transporting a new merchant, the man told him that he had grown famous around the villages, as they had begun calling him their savior for healing sick people with his healing ability. At that moment, they realized that several bandits were standing in their way, and the leader told them that they intend to rob the merchant inside. However, Rafalia decided to take his place and cast a mirage spell that made her invisible. So, as Foe tornado at the bandits, she finished them off in an instant. With the bandits all bound up, the leader began telling them that another traveler had informed them about the merchant and had said that they would make $1 million from robbing him. When Now Fumi wondered just what they should do with these scums, the merchant suggested that they hand them over to the local guards. However, the bandits thought they would easily walk away, and the leader told Now Fumi that every everyone would believe that he was actually the villain, as the castle had done a great job of naming him the most useless hero in the world. Realizing he wouldn't be coming out on top, now Fumi threatened to eliminate them all and told Fo to prepare her belly. Afraid of meeting their doom, they began to beg for their lives. So now Fumi agreed to spare them in exchange for all of their valuables. So that evening the bandits began to surrender their loot, and Rafalia thought they had become bandits themselves. However, the merchant told her that it was a perfect deal and decided to make Naofumi his inspirational hero. Even so, Naofumi would not be flattered by his words and demanded an additional reward from the merchant. The man told him that he was willing to share his knowledge and connections with him and said that it would be worth more than gold and silver. That night, the man began showing him how to craft gems and imbue them with energy. And along the way, Naofumi managed to pick up a few spells, and within a few days, he was able to craft gemstones on his own. And by the end of the week, he had found a place in the traders group and learned that Moriyasu had saved a dying village by discovering a legendary crop that grows even during famine. On the other hand, he discovered that Rin had traveled through the southeast looking to slay new monsters. On top of that, the merchant had offered him a parting gift of a large portion of his possessions. When Naofumi showed the deed to a mining chief, he told him that he has struck a gold mine and offered to provide him any gemstone he wants. Now, Fumi told him that he wants the magic thread gemstones so that he could at least make Fo a real dress. So, the following day, they began traveling to the site, having received directions from the chief. Before long, they arrived at the ancient site. When they arrived at the end of the cave, they found an empty chest and wondered what may have been kept inside. As Fo towards a new passage, they began to head deeper inside. Shortly, they discovered a monster's footprint, and the magic lady told them that it was a dangerous beast. But at that moment, his torch went out and they began hearing mysterious voices. The magic lady told them not to listen and said that it was merely a trap to divert their attention. Immediately, she cast an anti-bind spell to break the illusion. As they discovered several bats before them, Foy decided to absorb them in his shield and soon acquired a new skill. As they continued through the passage, they finally came across the gemstones, but realized that there was a new monster that had made this its home. Now, Fumi wondered just how they would acquire the gems, worried that the monster may destroy them all. But Rafalia and Fo suddenly charged at it. As Rafalia lunged with her sword, it dodged and kicked her aside before evading Fo's kick. But the lady burned it with her fire blast. Even so, it nearly clawed Naofumi's face off. But as he managed to hold it off, Fo kicked it in the face and pulled Naofumi away before it unleashed a powerful lightning. Realizing he was nearly toast, Naofumi wondered how they could slay the monster and soon noticed Rafalia as she cast her mirage spell and tried sneaking up on the beast. However, it heard her footsteps and nearly ended her in that instant. Photo told Naofume that the beast was highly sensitive to sound. So, as it jumped towards them, Naofumi utilized his new skill and told Fo to scream into his shield. Immediately, she let out a terrible scream that repelled the monster, and the lady cast another fire blast to weaken it, allowing Rafalia to stab it before Fo dealt it the final blow. Realizing Rafalia was wounded, Naofumi bandaged her wound, telling her to be careful next time. With no other monster to stop them, Naofumi finally obtained the gemstone. So the following day, Fo began converting her mana into the magic threads, but had already grown exhausted from all the work. By the next day, Naofumi finally handed the dressmaker the magic threads for Fo's clothes. And when they returned, they found Fo stunning in her new outfit. But Naofumi was only relieved that he no longer has to expand his budget for her clothes. In an instant, she transformed into the bird. And Naofumi realized that he just dodged a one-way ticket to the land of Brokies. A few days later, Naofumi and Rafalia began heading to a neighboring village to deliver magical potions. And Naofumi wondered why a village would need so many healing potions at the same time. Before long, they came across thick vines and knew that something was definitely wrong with this place. So the village chief told them that the trees were starting to turn into monsters and were beginning to attack the people, causing them to abandon their homes. He said that it all began after Moyasu introduced the divine seed to them, which turned out to be the seed from hell. And as they entered into a tent, he saw all the sick children hoping to save them. Naofumi gave one child a potion, and as he spilled it on the plants, they vanished, healing him in that instant. As they began to leave, having healed all the other children, Naofumi told Rafalia that he was already sick of everyone and would be leaving as soon as he was paid. However, the chief told Naofume to eliminate all the monsters and offered him some cash for his troubles. So, he accepted it without any care in the world and set out to do his business. When they arrived inside the village, a monster tree spewed poison gas, but Rafalia cut it down and Foe destroyed another. However, now Fumi found a larger tree, so Foe charged towards it, and using the air shield, she was able to dodge all the vines and landed a kick at the monster. Even so, another monster appeared. So now Fumi told Rafalia to splash a potion all over it in hopes of killing it. As she hitched a ride on Foe, they took off, evading all the vines effortlessly before Rafalia cut them off. However, as they began to fall, Rafalia got caught in the vines, but quickly protected her plot as she spilled the potion. The tree regenerated immediately, so now Fumi decided to try his enhancement skill and began approaching the tree. Immediately, he was bound up, but his powers began ripping the vines apart. As he spilled another potion, the tree began melting apart at that instant and crumbled to the ground. When now Fumi discovered that he has acquired a plant modification skill, he tossed 3 seeds and watched them transform into a monster tree before withering away. After returning to the villagers, now Fumi told them that he had done his job, but said that they had to clean up the place on their own because no one hired him for a cleaning job. The next day, he was able to fill his own mana into the forbidden seed and planted it. Before his eyes, it grew into a plant, and now Fumi told the villagers that he reduced its breeding and mutation ability, making it possible to bear normal fruits. The chief began to thank him for this gift, but now Fumi told them that it was not for free. So Rafalia suggested that they have a trade by barter. As they left the village, Rafalia wondered what they would do with all these fruits. That evening when they met the gem merchant, he agreed to buy all the fruits and offered to point them towards a nearby town for some rests. When they arrived, now Fumi thought the town looked nice and suggested that they stay here for a few days. That night, as Rafalia entered the room, she found now Fumi and Foe together and wished that she could have him all to herself. So early the next morning, she thought of getting him a gift that would impress him so he would finally see her as a grown woman. Before long, she began heading out, hoping to find a bird with an ancient crystal that would impress now Fumi and turn her love life around. However, she soon realized that Foe had followed her and thought she was after the ancient crystal. But Foe told her that she was looking for a bird's egg to eat for breakfast. As she began running off, Rafalia ran after her until she grew tired. However, as she realized that Foe was about falling off the cliff, she managed to catch her, but they fell off together. Realizing they had fallen on a beast, they started running away as it chased after them. When they got close to the edge, Foe turned into the bird, and with Rafalia hitching a ride, she jumped over to the other side, finally escaping from the animal. After a few hours, they finally found the bird and began sneaking towards it. When Rafalia tried to take an egg, the bird began screaming and the beast appeared before them. As it charged towards them like a mad bull, it destroyed the nest and scattered all the eggs until the girls finally had enough. So they returned to the town with the beast as their prize. But Rafalia was disappointed that she wouldn't be offering Naofume any gifts. As 2 men appeared before them, one told them that the beast was a rare offering for the town's ritual and offered to pay them good money for it. Realizing the opportunity, they agreed to sell it and were able to buy Naofumi a special tool for crafting metals. Rafalia told him that it was their special way of thanking him for being a good husband to them. So Naofumi suggested that they have a threesome. A few days later, as they prepared to leave for a new village, they came across 2 travelers. After serving them breakfast, the lady told them to return to their city and said that the village was disturbed by a terrible plague. However, Naofumi saw this as his opportunity to make some extra cash and began heading towards it anyway. When they arrived at the village, he told an old man that he had come to sell them some healing potions. Immediately, the man realized that he was the famous traveler they had always heard about and hurried off to tell the others. Shortly, the village doctor led him into a room filled with sick people. So, now Fumi gave one sick man a potion, and everyone was surprised to see him restored. That night, now Fumi decided to charge the doctor 10 times his usual fee and said that the villagers would return to being sick if they failed to discover the cause of their illness. The doctor told them that everyone had grown sick after a dragon on the nearby mountain was slain, and that the rot of the dragon's rotten flesh had poisoned the air killing everyone around the site. With no one able to resist the poison, they could not incinerate the body and stop the disease. Thinking of how much he would make from this, now Fumi decided to take up the challenge and told them that he would be charging them 50 times more than usual. Before long, they began heading towards the mountains. After spotting several monsters before them, now Fumi thought that it would be a waste of time if they tried to fight them all. So, he cast a spell on Foe, making her run through them and breezing all the way to the mountains. When they arrived before the dragon, now Fumi wondered just how they would rip it apart. But before their eyes, the dragon began restoring to life. And now Fumi realized that all their plans were screwed. As they began running off, Foe jumped before them and flew towards the dragon, knocking it with a punch. When it spewed poison gas, now Fumi managed to block it, but the smoke began to overwhelm Reptalia. Hoping to kill it, Foe charged at it and managed to evade its attacks. However, now Fumi thought they were better off retreating and tried calling Foe to return. But at that moment, the dragon devoured her and swallowed her up instantly. At the sight of this, now Fumi and Rafalia thought they would never see her again. As the dragon spewed more gas, now Fumi remembered his first moments with Foe and how he watched her transform. At that instant, his anger began to grow and his curse series was activated. Using his hate, the shield's power began to increase. But as he approached the dragon, it smashed him into the ground, and Rafalia thought that he had walked into his own death. However, he re-emerged, raising the dragon's foot. And as his powers increased even more, Rafalia tried to stop him, but was blown away. Now, Fumi released a powerful light that destroyed the ground and cleared the dust before revealing his flaming shield. As the dragon struck with its tail, he burned it off. And remembering the pain of his betrayal, his shield burned even brighter. And he knocked the dragon, ready to burn all of it. But at that moment, he heard Rafalia's voice, and as his mind was restored, he found her wounded and saw her pass out on the ground. Desperate to save her, he started casting his healing magic, but she remained unconscious. Utilizing his distraction, the monster attacked him, but he was protected by his shield. However, he tried to put out the flames, realizing he could not save Rafalia and attack the dragon at the same time. Just then, the monster began to scream and suddenly passed out. As he wondered what just happened, Rafalia came awake, but nearly lost consciousness again. She wondered who slayed the dragon. But even now, Fumi had no answer. Before their eyes, Foe rolled out of its belly, and they were surprised to see her alive. But she told them that she was never dead. She told them that while eating through its belly, she had found a purple crystal, but she revealed that it was already inside her belly. As Rafalia began to look really sick, now Fumi suggested that they return to the village immediately, but she told him that they must burn the dragon's corpse before leaving. That evening, after returning to the village, the doctor decided to pay now Fumi for getting rid of the dragon. But he told him to use it in treating Rafalia because as her health grew worse, he realized that she was more important than all the gold coins in this world. The doctor told him that Rafalia was suffering from a powerful dragon curse and that they had no ability to cure her. So he offered him the money once more, telling him that it would come in handy as now Fumi visited Rafalia. He wondered just how she would recover from her illness. At the same time, Foe decided to give now Fumi another crystal she had found in the dragon, so he planted it in his shield, hoping to acquire a new skill. However, when he remembered that his rage had exposed Rafalia to danger, he decided to apologize to her, saying that they should have never gone against the dragon. But Rafalia told him that she was responsible and blamed herself for being too weak and useless to fight. But Foe said that her attack had complicated their plans, trying to cheer everyone up. Now Fumi told them that they were stronger now than ever, and said that they would overcome their battles together. When he tried to leave, Rafalia asked him to spend the night in her bed, saying that she wants to feel his long sword deep inside her sheath. But now Fumi was in no mood for this and told her to spend her night reading the Bible. A few days later, now Fumi and his herm began slaying monsters. When he started feeling guilty for allowing Rafalia to join in the battle, she told him that she enjoys flexing her muscles and slaying all the monsters like cutting grass. That afternoon, as they began traveling through the forest, now Fumi told Rafalia that they must return to the city immediately so that they would find a cure for her illness. At that moment, they discovered a young girl on the other side of the forest. But when the birds noticed their presence, they took off immediately. The girl noticed now Fumi and his company and basically overlooked him like he was totally invisible, but told Foe that she has always wished to meet her clan and was happy that she could talk. Rafalia wondered if the girl was from the village, but now Fumi told her that she was probably the daughter of some noble lord. After the girl introduced herself as Melty, now Fumi told Foe that he would be heading to town with Rafalia and offered her a timeout. Happy to get a break, Photo and the girl was happy that she had made a new friend. That evening in the village, Naofumi began to heal the people with his healing potion. But later that night, as he bandaged Raphelia's wound, Fo told them that Melty was a lost little girl who could not find her way back to the city after getting separated from her security. At that moment, the girl arrived asking them to escort her to the city as she wished to reunite with her family. With Naofumi unwilling to agree, Melty told him that she must visit the capital immediately for an urgent duty and promised to reward him with more gold than he can hold. Now, Fumi thought he may as well become a millionaire from all the reward, but was worried that he might get into trouble for hanging around with the Lord's daughter. Fo told him that they can't abandon her, and Rafalia said that helping her was the right thing to do. So, Naofumi finally agreed. The next day, Naofumi and the girls finally rode out of the village. But as they began a new journey, Rafalia endured all of her pain. After successfully sneaking into the city, Naofumi told Fo to escort Melty to her home and to return with all the cash she promised. Afterwards, they arrived at the church hoping to find a cure for Raphelia's illness. Now, Fumi noticed that there was no symbol of his shield on the top of the church and realized that everyone in the church probably hates him. After arriving inside, the Pope welcomed him, saying that he had witnessed his duel with Monoyasu at the castle and considers him a great fighter. But now Fumi could give two about his compliments and demanded for their most powerful holy water that would heal any curse. One priest told him that nothing good comes for free and that he must pay a gold coin for it. However, when he used his appraisal skill on the holy water, he realized that it was the cheapest one in their store and told them to go drink it. So the Pope commanded for the real bottle and apologized for the mix-up. After using his appraisal on a new bottle, he discovered that this was the real one and began to leave. When they arrived outside the church, they noticed that a knight was running towards them, screaming for his attention. Unwilling to associate himself with anyone in the city, now Fumi and Rafalia started running off, hoping to lose the man. And they hid in an alley, looking to keep Rafalia safe. Now Fumi suggested that they split up and decided to draw the knight towards a different direction. After growing exhausted from all the runs, now Fumi tried resting, but Miyasu came flying with his spear, narrowly missing him. Now Fumi wondered if he had finally lost his mind, but Miyasu told him that he had come to free another slave girl. As now Fumi blocked his spear, he told him to go get a life, saying that Rafalia was never getting in his bed. But Masayasu told him that he had come to free someone else. With now Fumi confused, Miyasu told him that he had spotted an angel in his group and had come to rescue her immediately. After realizing that the girl was Fo, Monoyasu began saying that he had never seen a prettier angel before and has been considering having his own harem with her as his second wife. Now, Fumi noticed his growing protector and wondered just how he intends to satisfy his harem with his damaged plot development device. Wounded by the memory, Miyasu decided to retaliate Fo's attack and launched his spear, but he parried it, destroying his stall instantly. A few people began screaming at him to grow a brain cell, but when others thought his attacks were perfect, they began a fight of their own. As Motoyasu began charging with his spear, the knight stood in his way, forcing him to stop. But Mine arrived and commanded her soldiers to surround them immediately, revealing a royal order. She commanded that Madesu and now Fumi begin a new duel. However, Melty appeared just in time and said that she would not allow a duel inside her city. At that moment, now Fumi discovered that she was Mayat's sister. Shortly, Reptilia and Fo arrived, wondering why Moyasu had completely lost his mind. Without hesitating, he tried winning Fo with his best subreddit pickup lines, promising to build her a castle and treat her like a princess. But Fo told him that pulling a carriage was all she's ever dreamed of. Even so, Moriyasu thought she had also been brainwashed by now Fumi and threatened to end him like he plans to do to the fat, disgusting bird that nearly damaged his plot. Hearing his words, Fo grew angry and transformed into the bird, ready to destroy his plot device for good this time. With Motoyasu shocked at the realization that she was actually the bird, she kicked his plot region, certainly crushing it this time. Shortly, Melty appeared before them and told now Fumi that she wishes to speak with him in private, but he had already grown sick of seeing their disgusting faces. That evening, when they arrived at the smith shop, now Fumi demanded to know who she really was. She told him that she was the second princess of the kingdom and was first in line to the throne ahead of her own moronic sister, Mine. Just then, a knight told Melty that the king was waiting to see her. So, she decided to leave. But Fo was sad to have lost her only young friend. As Melty was leaving, she remembered that her mother, the queen, had sent her to the capital so she could defend Now Fume's honor since the king had merely treated him like an outcast. However, she was sad that she could not deliver her message to him. Inside the smith shop, Fo began asking Now Fumi why he had refused to speak with Melty. But he told her that it was a decision for grown-ups alone and that she must never hang out with her anymore. With the girl drawn to tears, she hurried out of the shop. However, she soon returned and told him that a few men had come to see him. Now, Fumi realized that it was the earlier night and that he was accompanied by a bunch of ugly losers. He demanded to know why he was stalking him. So the lead knight told him that they wished to join his team and to fight by his side when the waves return. Now Fumi told them to leave him the hell alone and said that they could just fight on their own when the waves arrive. However, another knight told him that they were from the nearby village he had saved during the last waves and that his desire to save their family had inspired them all to become brave. Unmoved by their speech, Now Fumi told them that he would only accept them into his team if they bought his old, disgusting item for 50 times the usual price, saying that it was their only shot at earning his trust. For the Simpsons and newbies that they were, the leader told him that they would find the money somehow, even if they had to sell their kidneys, too. That evening, with the knights gone, Now Fumi told the smith that he could see a strange symbol on Rafalia and Fo and wondered what it meant. So the smith told him that it meant they were qualified to have a class upgrade. He said that the upgrade allows them to increase their level cap, but that it could only be done by the church as they had the power of the hourglass. So the following day, Now Fumi remembered that there was an hourglass inside the church that could make the upgrade and told Rafalia to make up her mind on what she wants. He told her that his opinion was irrelevant since he would be returning to his own world once the waves were completely over. But Rafalia was shocked by the news, afraid that she would never see him again. When they arrived inside the church, they learned that the upgrade was expensive enough to buy them a yacht. And Now Fumi wondered just how many girls he would have in his harem if he had won. Deciding to man up, he told Rafalia to step up for her own upgrade and paid the money as requested. But a lady appeared and told him that they were forbidden from upgrading anyone from his group. Apparently, the outrageous sum was merely to scare him away. But with Now Fumi proving that he was truly a top GI, they realized that they had no more lies to tell, and the lady showed him a direct order from the king.